Unit 3 Politics. Let's go over our unit outline, what you should expect to learn during this unit. What are the topics we are going to cover? We're going to go over policy, parties, media, history, conservative and liberal views, the Republican and Democrat Party, and also interest groups. These categories are based on the Ohio High School Standards for American Government and Economics. First thing we'll discuss in this unit is policy. What is public policy? It's simply the government's plan for the public. What is the Republicans' plan? How do they want to run the government? Or how do the Democrats want to run the government? What will be their policy in terms of high taxes, low taxes, war, no war, immigration issues? We will talk about past and present policy issues. We use the scales often to talk about trade-offs, but mainly talking about regulation. Do you want to regulate? And what are the trade-offs of having heavy burdensome regulation? Or do you want to unrestrict and free the economy? And then what are the trade-offs there? We'll talk about possibly what's the different plans between the Republicans and Democrats in terms of how schools should be run or healthcare. We will discuss policy. What are political parties? Well, let's just boil this down. People have different plans on public policy. Aside from the parties, different people in this country think the government should do different things. And they want their way to win, and the best way to get their views or beliefs to be the policy is to form a party. You get more people, power in numbers, you vote. You then use those votes to get your guy elected into office or gal. And once in office, they use their voting powers in the legislature and in the executive branch to enforce those laws. And you then get the policy or plan that reflects your beliefs. So it starts with the person. They form a group, get the power in numbers to win the election, get your guy in office or gal. And once there, they institute the policy that follows your beliefs in terms of taxing, war, schools, healthcare. That's why we got parties. We'll also discuss the media and their initial job of informing the public, allowing the public to know about what's going on so the public then can create policy. Or sometimes the media persuades the public, tells the public what to think. And then once the public knows what to think, that then again affects what policies will go in place. We'll talk about the different types of media going back from books to pamphlets to more modern forms of print newspapers, TV news, radio, and social media. And we'll go through media history, and we'll often look at it through a critical lens. We can look back at the Spanish War and how it was created by a manipulation of the media lying about a supposed attack. We could also go back and look at the Iraq War, another example of media lying or possibly misleading or printing things that weren't true to get the country into war. Again, that's through a critical lens. It won't always be that way. But media has a very powerful role in informing the public. Sometimes they use it wisely, honestly, sometimes not the case. We'll look through history as we discuss politics and the different forms of government: democracy, monarchy, oligarchy. That's about as deep and wide as we will go. We're not going to cover every theory of government, but we'll talk about democracy, which simply means rule of the people. The people rule, the people vote. That's how decisions are made, mainly through voting. We'll talk about monarchy, which is often given, or at least presented, through a negative lens, a critical lens. And we're seen as a king, a tyrant, an absolute dictator. But we can also put a positive spin and look at it from a different angle and reflect on a monarchy being very similar to a business, in which a business owner makes all of the decisions. And if you look at it through that lens and you think of, oh, well, the boss makes all the decisions, I just show up to work every day, I don't have to worry about the direction of the company. It's a lot easier for the employee. Heavy is the crown. The CEO has to make the decisions or he goes out of business. The simple employee just shows up and works every day. What's the same for a king? Heavy is the crown. He has to make the decisions about what is right, what the rules should be, what the freedoms should be for the nation. Meanwhile, You would say, well, it's not fair. I don't get to vote. And that is very true. You don't get to determine the direction of McDonald's if you're an employee. Just make the cheeseburgers, but you're still getting paid. And you don't have to worry about how to make the cheeseburgers. You don't have to worry about what should be in the special sauce. You just show up and do your thing. Same thing if you live in a monarchy with a king. The king has to think about everything. You get to live your life. You don't have to worry about politics. You don't have to worry about voting. You don't have to worry about the direction of the nation. You just hang out with your family, show up to work. Oligarchy would be the rule of the few, in which the people don't necessarily rule. A select group of elites, insiders, prestigious human beings. They're making all of the decisions. Very similar to a monarchy in some ways. We'll talk about political parties and their history. Republicans and Democrats mainly is what we will focus on in this U.S. class. We'll talk about their evolution, their changes over time, where they started, where they are today. What were the earliest political parties? And obviously we have the Republicans and Democrats today. We'll also discuss how these parties have changed over time. We are living through a realignment at the moment. Today's Republican Party is very much like the Democrat Party of 20 years ago. And the Democrats today are very much like the Republicans 20 years ago. And these changes are not new or novel. It happens throughout our history. We'll discuss conservative and liberal beliefs. What do conservatives generally believe today? What have they believed in the past? What do Democrats believe today? What do they believe in the past? And how do those beliefs affect their plans on public policy? Do they believe in a limited government, a restricted government, a government that leaves more of the freedoms and opportunities and decisions up to the people, and that central government does very little? Or do they believe in a strong central federal government that is very active in your day-to-day life, that makes many of the decisions and leaves less of the decisions up to the people? We'll decide what conservatives and liberals believe today and in the past. The Republicans and Democrat platforms in the past, their policies, their plans. So again, we are heavy on public policy because that's really all there is. What is the plan for this nation? What's the plan right now in 2024? What was the plan in 2023 and 2022? What was the plan in 1960, 1860? How did the Republicans, how did the Democrats think, believe, and act? How have their platforms changed? Again, we go back to the werewolf. If they are changing into realigning into different views and beliefs, then obviously their platform will reflect those different views and beliefs. The policy of Republicans 30 years ago is absolutely not the policy of the Republicans in 2024. Their plan for the public is very different. Their plan for the public today, much like the Democrat plan was 20 years ago, and vice versa. We'll look back at America's founding. We'll look back at the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And we'll fast forward all the way up to the Republicans and the Democrats today and their beliefs and platforms. And then the last thing we will discuss in Unit 3 are interest groups. Not very much different than political parties, but more so just a subgroup of political parties. A group within a group. And this group within a group is often centralized or organized around a single issue. And that interest group will work to get that issue codified into law. And we'll discuss the various interest groups in this country. Be it the National Rifle Association, NRA, National Right to Life. These are both generally interest groups that align with the Republicans. Planned Parenthood, Sierra Club, interest groups with an issue that want that issue to be codified into law, often align with a specific party, but it's no hard and fast rule. The NRA could also align with Democrats, and the Sierra Club could also sometimes connect with the Republican Party. But what we're really talking about is a group, a small group that gets together, uses their resources to steer public policy, but not all policy, mainly just one singular issue. For example, if your one singular issue is supporting the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms, you can vote and you can try to affect public policy with your right to vote. It's effective, but there may be a more effective way to influence public policy, and that would be to form an interest group. Power in numbers, just like a political party is power in numbers, an interest group can work the same. Now, interest groups don't typically work in that, well, we're just trying to get more votes. Although many of the NRA members will vote and will vote to elect people that support their singular issue, which is to support and defend the Second Amendment. Aside from voting, there's something more important in this nation, in this world, on this planet, and it is money. Interest groups often and mainly use money to influence elections, win elections, and then once they have their winner in office, they then have their winner create policy around their one specific issue. So the NRA uses money to help fund campaigns and other things within whatever party you want to decide it is. That party gets their candidate elected, and once in office, they pass legislation that helps with that issue. Although you don't really need to add an amendment that's already there, but you can make sure that laws do not take away their right to bear arms. That is what an interest group does. It's a group concerned with an interest, basically uses money to help politicians, and in return, that politician supports the issue. Pretty simple. That's Unit 3. That's what we're going through. That'll give you a day-by-day, beat-by-beat, blow-by-blow example of what to expect and what to learn.